Hi, everyone. Welcome to our training on Virtual Legislative Advocacy 101. My name is Claire McMorris, and I work for Oregon State University in the Government Relations Office. John, do you want to introduce yourself?
Hi, everybody. I'm Jon Eames. I'm with Eames Consulting, and I am the government affairs / lobbyist for the Beaver Caucus down in Salem, or virtually wherever we are.
So to give you a brief overview of what this training is going to consist of today, we're going to talk a little bit about what is legislative advocacy and why you would even want to participate in this. Secondly, we're going to cover how do you even become an effective advocate when you're meeting with legislators. Third, we're going to go over how do you engage in this world of virtual advocacy where we're talking to each other over Zoom and we're not in person. Then we're going to go into what to expect when you show up to your first virtual advocacy day organized by the Beaver Caucus or OSU. And lastly, we'll review what other types of virtual engagement you could partake in to make your voice heard, even if you can't participate in a virtual meeting on Zoom. John, do you want to cover what legislative advocacy is?
You bet. Thanks, Claire. So legislative advocacy is just what you think it is. It's pretty basic. You are taking an idea or you are promoting something in front of legislators or public policymakers in the legislative environment. So we have, as well as every single interest group, a group of people who are interested in the success for Oregon State and the success for Beaver Caucus. So your job and your role is to share your experience, your knowledge, and your expertise with legislators as they consider not only before the legislative session, but during the legislative session, bills, budgets, and other things that are hopefully in support of Oregon State University. So it's really important that you are involved, and we thank you so much for taking the time to not only do this training, but also participate in the virtual lobby day. It's essential because as much as we and Claire and I can do on the government affairs level, it doesn't match what you bring to the table when legislators are looking for advice and expertise on decisions. You have the knowledge of having been there at Oregon State, and you also have the knowledge of what Oregon State does around the state and why projects such as the Student Success Center in Bend or the Art Center in Corvallis are so important to the success for Oregon State and success for students not only in the Valley, but also over in Central Oregon and all the satellite areas around the state. So your knowledge is what legislators are really looking for. They're not looking necessarily for just lobbyists or advocates that are coming in, but it's your personal story that they want to hear. So that's why it's so important that you guys are involved. And this is really important. Anybody can be a legislative advocate. When I go around to schools and I talk to young kids about how a bill becomes a law, they're often surprised that the folks that really make the most of it impact down in Salem or in the legislative process are just real, everyday, normal people like you. And anyone can be a legislative advocate, and you don't have to have any special training. You don't have to have any special knowledge other than your personal experience. And frankly, it's the most impactful for legislators.
So what does this advocacy look like when we're talking about Oregon State University? So as you probably know, OSU is a public university, and we have a statewide presence through our extension and ag experiment stations. And because we're a public university, we receive a lot of our funding from the state. The state legislature allocates those funds every other year. And we have a lot of engagement in this process, primarily through our students, faculty, and alumni who help work with us to advance these priorities like John talked about. But also we have faculty and researchers who are experts in a variety of topics who help inform the state policy process. By seeking to amplify voices of our students, alumni, faculty, staff, parents, community supporters, we want elected leaders to understand the statewide impact of OSU and support initiatives, budget items, policies that help OSU build a healthier, brighter community for the entire state. So advocacy partners we typically work with, and these might be organizations that you are familiar with, include the Beaver Caucus, the Associated Students of OSU, and the Associated Students of Cascades Campus, which are our student government partners, the Presidential Student Legislative Advocates, now for OSU Cascades, Extension Community Advisory Network, and many other groups that come together to work with us to advance OSU priorities. Jon, do you want to talk about how to be an effective advocate in this process?
Absolutely. So the most important thing, and this is where people get a little tripped up, is people get nervous talking to legislators. Maybe it's their first time, maybe you are experienced and this is easy for you. But the most important thing is to be yourself. Legislators are not looking for some special nuanced piece of information that you're providing. They really do want to know what your experience is and why what we're advocating for is going to help you or the university into the future. So that personal story is really important. We always emphasize the support or to the importance of state support for higher education. Yes, we talk about different types of funding, bonding. We also talk about general fund that comes from the state general fund to support students and tuition. It's really important to keep focused on what you know. There's no reason for you to extend beyond that. If you don't know something, you can always say, I don't know. But the simple and easy message for them to hear, and it's okay, and we can help provide you some talking points so that you kind of memorize them or have them kind of in the back of your mind as you're talking to legislators, so it doesn't get off track or it doesn't get into areas that aren't focused on the message that we want to promote. And it also helps you, as you can see, clearly articulate it. If you don't have that talking point or the information that you want to share ahead of time, it kind of is tough because in a virtual environment, it's really hard to get that pace right and to get that communication back with the legislators. And always, of course, always say thank you. We have opportunities we can help you with emails and contact information for legislators and their staff to thank them for taking the time to listen to our advocacy.
So Virtual Advocacy Day is something that we're all experiencing for the first time. We've never done this before, where we bring together a group of alumni and students to meet with legislators over Zoom, over the internet, to talk about what's important to them. But we're really excited about this opportunity, not only to continue our drumbeat of advocacy in Salem, but to provide more opportunities to more people around the state, around the country who believe in Beaver Nation to be involved. You might be thinking by this point, so this is great. I want to participate over Zoom to meet with my legislator, but what does that even mean? First, and I think the most important point is you will always be joining a team of fellow OSU advocates. You're never going to be by yourself doing this, and you will always be with someone who has experienced it before, knows a little bit more about what to expect, maybe even has a relationship with the legislator you're meeting with, and they'll be able to provide you support as you and your team meet together virtually to have these advocacy meetings. You'll be scheduled and we'll provide you the links for a Zoom meeting that will last about 15 to 30 minutes. That will be kind of flexible depending on the legislator's schedule. And everyone will have an opportunity to speak to a legislator during this advocacy day. As Jon mentioned, the most important thing you can do is just be yourself, tell your story and your experience with OSU and how that might relate to whatever priorities you're talking about for that specific meeting. As I mentioned, you'll have someone to look towards in your team if you have any questions, both a team leader who will be focusing on keeping the conversations guided through the meetings, and also a team Zoom manager who will be assigned to do all the technical components on Zoom, which, as we all know, Zoom can sometimes cause problems. So we'll have someone specifically designed to help out with those technical issues as they arise. You'll have a prep session before the day of meetings, so you can get to know others on your team, talk about what you want to cover in your meetings, review the talking points, have any of your questions answered, and get you all set up for a successful meeting. Also, at the end of the day, similar to an in-person experience, we'll have an opportunity for a debrief meeting with everyone involved in the advocacy day to understand what happened during the meeting. Is there any feedback you'd like to provide to us to make these events better in the future? And just kind of understand how your meetings went. What were legislators talking about? Was someone really supportive of one thing and not of the other? That's really helpful information to the government affairs side people, so we can continue to follow up with those legislators and help advance OSU priorities. You've likely seen this screen before. This is a classic Zoom meeting. This you can review, go back and review, pause this video to review any of these components of Zoom you might be unfamiliar with. You've got your classic mute, stop video functions, and some other instructions here that might guide you through Zoom. A couple last tips for virtual advocacy. This is a new and different experience for everybody. So it's okay to express to your legislator in your meeting and your team members how different this is. I think we'd all prefer to be in person, but that's just not what we're doing this year. So I think we have to make the most of it, really lean into how different this is, and still make the most of it. Please, if you have the capacity to have your camera on, please do. I think it's really important that voices and faces are present for these meetings, and we can demonstrate to our legislators that we're engaged. Also, if you have the capacity with your device, and some people may, some people may not, we ask you to please set up a virtual Zoom background of your favorite OSU location, and we'll have several of those photos available to you that you can select from to really show how excited you are about representing OSU and talking about things that will help OSU students become more successful and have a great campus going forward. Lastly is just be conscious and respectful of the time. Legislators are on pretty tight schedules when we were in Salem in person, typically 15-minute meetings. And sometimes that can be a little flexible online, but it's still important to have an understanding, but at the beginning of the meeting, how much time the legislator has set aside for this meeting. It might be 15 minutes, it might be 20 minutes, it might be 30 minutes, it might be 5 minutes. So just being understanding and clear about that from the start of the meeting is really helpful in our advocacy efforts to just make sure that we are being respectful and making our points in an efficient way.
So, and just to follow up on Claire's comment, we also will have leaders to help us walk through the pace and timing of all of these meetings, so it's not all on you, but just be conscious and aware as you're talking, if you're going on and on and on, which I sometimes tend to do, to check yourself and to say, oh, okay, I'm gonna let some other folks talk too, but we'll help guide through that process. And if you didn't get everything that you wanted to say said, then you can follow up in other ways with the legislature. As you can see, we have email, social media to follow, hashtag OSU Impact, and there's a lot of different places to engage, not just in these meetings, but also following up. If you want to send an email, thank you. If you want to follow up on a specific issue, or if you have other issues that you want to talk to your legislator about, these are really good opportunities. They provide materials and content for you to be able to advocate on behalf of OSU Beavers.
So with that, we just want to say thank you for tuning into this training. We're really excited about what virtual advocacy can mean for OSU and our students and our presence statewide over the coming year and beyond. So if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me, and I can direct you to the right place to have them answered. My email is here and my phone number is here, and go Beavs.
Go Beavs.